Man, look at how I got that one. Just barely. It's a nice fish. We'll get her back. Get her back in the water. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys for hanging with me. A little bit of a springtime bed fishing, swimming a jig, depending on the conditions we have. Super windy out here today, so I'm doing a little bit of everything. Was swimming a jig around and saw one that looked somewhat easy to catch, but we've got kind of interesting conditions. You know, there's a lot of wind, and then I'm in these areas that have a good amount of grass. I'm just covering water with a swim jig, and then when I get one to chase my bait or whatever, but most of the time you can do all your damage with the swim jig. You got to keep a Texas rig on the boat ready just in case, but a lot of those bigger fish will bite a swim jig that you're swimming over their head. On a day with this much wind, we've got partial clouds, so it'll go from being bright where you can see where you want to throw it. The brim beds, you have those sandy spots that are the bass beds. You got little holes in the grass, so you can swim your jig all around there, and then it stays sunny long enough. Get in there and make a few casts at one you see. But we're just covering a lot of water. And I feel like this is a really good, effective way to bed fish. You know, down in Florida, we usually have some type of swim bait or a devil's horse or a speed worm, and we're covering water. And then when you start getting around places where you can see, or you just get in areas where you know there's a lot of bass, then you can really slow down. And every bass in that general area is going to be spawning in a little tiny stretch. Then you just can pitch your Texas rig around. You can still fish with your speed worm or your swim bait, but I really like to slow down, make sure my bait is in a bed, let it kind of sit in there. But that 1-2 punch, I think, is very important, because right now we have a ton of wind. I'd be wasting a lot of time just trying to get navigating around those areas with this wind. A lot of times you catch like a 50-50 mix on whatever bait you're fishing fast with. You know, because you got a lot of pre-spawners and spawners that will hit this. You know, they're guarding, post-spawn, swim jig sometimes your best bait. And you can't fish everything. You know, I've got a clump of grass here. I got a stump there. I got, looks like, some bluegill beds over there. So if you try to just fish it all with a slow moving bait, you would miss a lot of it. On days like today where you have a ton of wind, it's hard to just get in there and really slow down. So fish are a lot more active when you have all this wind. Use that wind to your advantage. They're not all on the beds. A lot of them are going to be around here chasing bluegill. And if you're coming out here tomorrow, you'll know where every fish is at in this big bay. Just stay on that trolling motor and cover it all. And on a lake like this, where you have clear water but you still have big flats, the fish aren't going to all spawn where you can see them. That's kind of a rarity for big fish to be spawning up where you can see them. A lot of those bigger fish you're going to catch blind flipping to or swimming this jig to them. So every once in a while you'll get lucky and there will be a decent fish up real shallow, but most of the time those bigger ones are going to be hanging out here. where you just can't see them. This water, the further we get in the back of this pocket, the more dinge, dirtier this water is getting. So that's why I'm swimming a black and blue. I got a green pumpkin trailer on there. And then we have the partial clouds. So it'll be sunny for about a couple minutes and then it'll get cloudy. I feel like I'm about to catch one. Around some brim beds, some little clumps of grass. I got a 1/2 ounce jig, which we have so much wind, it's really hard to fish this much wind with like a 5/16 or a 3/8. A lot easier to put this where I want it. I am putting it in really small little places. And I think I could fish a worm in here and catch a lot of 1.5 to 2 pound fish. But if you really want to trigger a big one in these clear lakes where they could be anywhere, I mean, from this bank to that far bank, they could be spawning anywhere. It's not too deep in any of those places. I just feel like a swim jig. Now, you're not going to get a ton of bites. Oh, you're not going to get a ton. All the time doing this. I swam it through a clump of grass and it looked like a big white fish came up and got it. I think it was just a cloud of mud. But yeah, you're probably not going to get as many, well, definitely not get as many bites as if you were flipping or some kind of creature bait. But if you only got to catch 5, I think the Major League Fishing guys were here, and I thought we would see more of this, but this is more of a technique if you want to catch those really big ones. They didn't need those as bad. And it all depends on the lake. I mean, some lakes you can catch 50. You can catch 50 on this. This is fairly clear water, about as clear as I like for this technique. So it seems like you don't get a ton of bites doing this on the clearer lakes, or at least I don't. But I do catch significantly bigger fish. And then if I want to come back to where I did get those bites, I usually can catch a couple more dragging something slow. But this is just one of those techniques where it's a tournament winning technique. When it's on, man, it's hard to beat this. Because of how efficient you are, it really tricks those big fish. When they do eat this, it's like gone. And I like that 1/2 ounce in the clear water, but the further I push back in here, the dirtier this is getting. So I could lighten up my jig a little bit, maybe go to a little brighter white color maybe. There's still pretty good visibility, so I'm going to keep swimming around here. Frog fishing on steroids when you do get a bite. I mean, it's a flush. Somehow they hit this harder than they do a frog. I think a lot of times with a frog, some fish kind of just smack at it because they have a kind of a feeling that it's not real. The way this thing comes through the water, they don't get that good of a look at it, but they get enough of a look at it. Most of the time when they bite this, it's like gone. I got this rigged up on 50-pound braid. It's a little easier to cast. If I was making real short skips or something, I'd maybe go to 65. I got a 7-foot heavy, so I feel like this shorter rod helps me cast it as well. So 7-foot, but heavy action, high-speed reel. There's got to be one in here somewhere. This little isolated patch right here. They definitely can see it. There's no doubt about that. Just don't get in a hurry. I mean, you don't want to put too much on the trolling motor. There could be 2 7-pounders right here in front of the boat, like right in front of the boat. Yeah, this is a really good alternate way to fish bedding fish areas, especially if they're really coming. You know, we might not have as many up here as I would like to think with all the warm water. I thought there were a ton up here, but moon phase isn't right. You know, we're about a week away from a new moon, which will bring fish to the bed pretty good. So I didn't always know that, but I do now. A new moon, because of how dark it is at night, they know they gotta get their spawning done during the day. When you have the right water temperature, fish are gonna be trying to spawn. It's the big waves I'm referring to, and full moon, obvious, everybody knows that, but the new moon is one too, because again, they don't want to be doing their thing in the dark. So midday on a new moon can be really good for fish to come into an area, reload, and but yeah, I would definitely say when you don't have a ton of fish up, this is more of a 5 bites a day type of pattern. Also, how are you gonna get your bait back through? Kind of don't have an option. You need something with a big hook and a heavy line, big rod to get. A lot of times just coming down this from a different direction, the wind, you know, these fish are chasing purely out of defense to protect. their bed. So a lot of times if you don't swim it like right by their head when they're on a bed, they're not going to bite it. But if you do put it right in front of them, they're going to try to kill it. So sometimes just a different angle. I already fished through all this, but let the wind kind of die down for a second and fish back through it. It's so easy to fish through bedfish. There's a little bit of activity in here. It's hard to see anything because the water's so dark. I feel like I need to get back in the clear water. This darker water is when I first started swimming this jig, it seemed like the water was too clear for a black and blue jig. Now I can barely see my jig. It's a little bit clearer out here. You know, that I was talking about that Major League Fishing Redcrest tournament that was just here. You know, the every fish counts format is really hard to do when you're trying to fish like for big ones like this. Like, I don't really feel like I'm in a press for time, but if I was having to catch 28 bass, I wouldn't be doing this because you're not going to catch that many fish doing this. But I feel like this is your best option at catching the biggest one. You know, this and like a frog or. I mean, you could get fortunate and flip your jig on a bed and there'd be a giant there, but I feel like those big ones are going to kind of hang around here. When they're going to decide to hang around here, they're going to be on this outside. Really surprised I haven't caught one yet. But I do feel like this little outside edge here is going to be where I would, if I don't get bit, and the wind has kind of died down a little bit. No, sir. I'm sorry? Casey O'Donnell. Yeah. Yeah.